We read a book by David Michael together called Zealous. And in this book, he works with this network organization called Truth 78. And it's based out of Psalm 78. And looking at verse 4, it says, "We will not conceal them from their children, but we will tell the next generation to come the praises of the Lord and his power and his wondrous works that he has done." And this shaped our time to really emphasize those stories of impact that we're telling. We want to be able to tell stories that will make a future impact in a world that we don't necessarily understand. I grew up in the 80s, and I would have had no idea if my Sunday school teachers back when I was in Sunday school started teaching me about AI, because I'm sure they didn't know anything about AI back in those days. But my Sunday school's teachers taught me how to love Jesus, how to love his word, and they were able to equip me to live and function and serve in a world full of AI because they knew how to keep the priority about worshiping God and keeping my focus on God and staying rooted in his word. And so that's what we want to make sure that we're telling the stories, that when we tell a story of a child who's been impacted by the gospel, we're not just saying how brave that child is, but we're actually declaring how great our God is as a result of the things that they have gone through. And so I want you to imagine for me a tree laden with fruits on earth in a beautiful place. This tree is a tree that you have invested in. It's your world, it's your context, and you are helping this child, this tree, bear lasting fruit. And one day, your role in that child's life will come to an end, and that child will take their piece of fruit and they will go to another place on earth that maybe has a harsher condition than you knew about. And they will plant that seed from that fruit in the ground, and it will grow into a tree that will then bear much fruit. And that child may not know what will happen to that fruit. But imagine a world that is now down the road in time, and our world may start to look very different at this time. Perhaps we're even venturing into outer space. And imagine a fruit from that tree taking a long journey to a different planet and being planted in soil that is not Earth soil. And yet, because of the nurture that had taken from generations before, that then grows into a tree that bears much fruit. And that tree is thriving in a world that we know nothing about, in a city, in a civilization on a planet that we can't even comprehend. But that tree is thriving and bearing lasting fruit because we did our job to tell the glorious deeds of the Lord in the lives of a child from a very young age. And that made lasting fruit in that child. And then generations down the road, people are still worshiping our great God because of the stories that we're able to tell and of how good God is and how great his wondrous works are. We will not conceal them from their children. We will tell the next generation to come the praises of the Lord and his power and his wondrous works that he has done. This is the story that we want to tell. We want to capture those stories and find out what's happening in the lives of these kids. Do they have the stories to tell of how great their God is? That long after we're gone, they're going to be able to continue telling those stories and bearing fruit that will bear fruit. And so welcome to our Tell campaign, where we're going to be telling these stories. We want to hear you, and we want to hear your stories. Perhaps you're going to tell us the story of a child declaring the praises of God. Perhaps you're going to tell us the story of a young person who was discipled as a child by a 1 for 50 leader, and now they've grown up and they're changing lives. But they trace their story of following Jesus to that 1 for 50 trained leader that helped them walk with Jesus as a child. And then maybe you want to tell your story of impact that declares the praises of God. So today we're going to give you some examples of what these stories might look like, and then we're going to open the floor to you and give you an opportunity to start telling your stories. And even after the call ends, this campaign is not finished. We're going to continue this through the months and the years to come. And we want to keep capturing your stories of impact so that Christ can be glorified and magnified.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. And it's very exciting when we've been thinking about how this is going to roll out. We've already been collecting stories, and we've got a few that we're going to do from the written angle. And again, you can give them to us in all different ways or to each other all different ways. But the first way we're going to highlight is the written testimony. First of all, we heard from Nepal. We had a big new opening of One for 50 in Nepal last fall, and they are going like crazy all over the place, connecting networks with each other. And a brother named Deepan is going to be has shared a written testimony about a boy named James. You can see on the far left on the screen there. James is a boy who's 13, and oh no, he's a leader. He learned how to do storytelling, especially in a training, and he gained a lot of experience in how to do that, how to prepare, how to tell stories using the kid story method. He found it very practical and insightful. And when he returned to his church, he trained other teachers who now have gone way beyond using their regular curriculum to adding this in, and they feel so much more equipped. And their children's ministry has grown and developed. Um, the kids are also growing in their own spiritual lives and in knowledge of the Bible. I mean, they're actually sharing the stories with others and discipling their friends as well. The parents are also seeing changes in the lives of the children as they are experiencing this new stuff that they're learning at church. He also told the story of the woman on the bottom in the bottom picture on your screen there on the left. Her name is Manisha. This girl is an 8-year-old. I think the teacher's telling the story. The 8-year-old's from a non-Christian family. Manisha was suffering from heart problems, and a Christian friend of hers told her that if she prayed to Jesus, that he could heal her. But Manisha didn't know how to pray, and her friend connected her with her Sunday school teacher. And the Sunday school teacher, over the phone, prayed for her since she lived far away, and the Lord healed Manisha. She was healed of this heart condition. So Manisha is now this girl who was a Buddhist non-Christian, has come to church. She's attending, she's bringing her friends, and she's growing in the Lord. So we're really grateful for that testimony. We hope we get testimonies like that from you as well to share with us. Another person who shared the page in the middle of your screen, the picture in the middle there, was submitted by Martha from Malawi, and she's here on the call today, but I'll just briefly overview what she shared in these. One first picture on the top is this girl named Faith, and everywhere she goes, she spreads the gospel. She was at a boarding school, and she wasn't allowed to do this, like to pray in her dorm, but she covered herself with a blanket and prayed silently because she knew it wasn't allowed. She realized afterwards that around her people had gathered, and there were other children around her and kneeling by her bed, and they started manifesting things that were kind of demonic. This girl prayed for them, and she cast demons out of them, and they were set free from the demons and gave their lives to Jesus, and she started to discipling them. So she's just a girl who's doing this herself in her boarding school. Um, Another one is Kandwani. He's a 13-year-old, and he loves soccer. And as he goes and plays soccer, he shares Christ with his teammates at home and at his school. She's got children. She's seen the children are just jumping right in at the end of church and helping to clean the church so that it's ready for the next event. And also, they discovered this trend that was happening. No matter how much the children's workers were being trained, even in One for 50 things, they'd go back, but their pastors weren't supporting them in the training to be able to use the training that they had gotten. So they adjusted, and she started training the pastors instead about a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago, she started. The pastors are now excited, and they are training the children's workers in their own churches. And they're very excited because the churches are growing as they focus more on the children. Their churches are growing, and they see huge value in this. So next week, we're going to have 100 children's leaders from around Malawi coming together for their national training. And we're very excited about that. So those are just a few of the written ones. Now, we also talked about the fact you could submit an audio testimony. And one element that we're adding to that to make it even more exciting is One for 50 now has a podcast element that we've got on our YouTube channel. And people can download, you can upload, you can record yourself telling a story that doesn't have to just be short. You can tell us a whole story and something God's doing, and we can make a podcast out of it that others can listen to.
These are children who can hold outreach ministries on their own. They can do prayers on their own. They can fast. They can evangelize the community. They can evangelize their families. And I'm excited to see them changing the world.
Psalm 78 verse 4 says, "We will not conceal them from their children, but we will tell the next generation to come the praises of the Lord and His power and His wondrous works that He has done." Welcome to the 1 for 50 Tell podcast, where we will tell the stories of what God is doing in the lives of our 1 for 50 leaders. We're excited you're here. Get ready as we tell the story of God's wondrous works.
I was intentional with this team. I wanted to disciple them that they may become influential kingdom champions in their own spheres of life. And out of the 16, almost 3/4 of them are serving churches in different places across the country. And I'm excited how God is using them in their giftings and talent to change the generations. Abigail is an example of such because she is already working with a youth ministry. She's also serving in church in the worship team. She's leading worship in church every Sunday. You see, investing in one child, in children in one church, touches many churches, and that's exciting to see them moving out of one church to another church and continuing to do what we disciple them to do, to change generations.
My Sunday school teacher built a foundation that can never be broken. I actually feel I am doing what God purposed me to do, what God created for me to do. Okay, my name is Abigail Nyambura. I am a music minister. I do worship ministry. I am a worship leader. I am a vocalist.
I have been equipped to train children leaders across Ghana, West Africa, and beyond. These leaders have in turn gone on to train tens of thousands of children, many of whom are now actively involved in ministry. My name is Savio Furiwa Hooper, and I am from Ghana, West Africa. I currently serve as a member of the global leadership team of 1 for 50.
That was awesome. We got to hear the audio version. We saw the written version. Now, Savior's going to introduce video testimonies.
Thank you so much, Nancy, for the great introduction to the podcast and text versions of Tell. Now I have the joy of introducing the video version of Tell, an inspiring way to visually share our stories of what God is doing in and through us. Tell is all about sharing testimonies, stories of how God is moving in our work with children, how it's impacting the lives of children workers, and how we ourselves have grown through the 1 for 50 journey. These stories matter. They multiply encouragement and they inspire action. And they remind us that we are not alone in this mission.
So as you can see, there's a lot of different ways that you can share the things that God is doing in your midst. in different formats as well. And so we want to open this up to you. You may have something to share on the call in a moment. We'll ask you to either write in the chat or unmute and share if you have something. But as we go from this call into our daily lives, I want you to continue thinking about stories that you might tell and submit them in any one of those three formats, either by text, by audio, or by video. And the video, as you can see, could be vertical, it could be horizontal, it can be in any format. It can be a short one in just 60 seconds, or it can be a longer video. But if you scan that QR code or click the link that Spurgeon just put in the chat, you'll be taken to a Google Drive folder. And in that folder, it will show you different folders that you can upload any one of these types of submissions. And you can then put them up there and then let us know through WhatsApp or email that you've put some stuff in there, and we can then put it out in its appropriate format, whether it's a video on our YouTube channel or our next podcast episode, or we can put it into a document that we share with our community. If you want help with that, we can help you with that. So those are some things that we want to do. And again, just to remind you, the things that we want you to tell, it could be any one of these three things, but we want it here. We tell the story of a child declaring the praises of God. We want to hear you tell the story of a young person who is discipled as a child by a 1 for 50 leader. And we want to hear your story of impact that declares the praises of God. So your stories may be any one of those different directions. So if one of those three captures your heart and a story is coming to your mind, I want you to think about sharing that with us, even right now on the call, or in further detail after the call is finished. I would like to share one quote from David Michael's book, Zealous, that we read as a leadership team. The ultimate reason for devoting ourselves to the discipleship of the next generation is for the glory of God. Let me say that again. The ultimate reason for devoting ourselves to the discipleship of the next generation is for the glory of God. So what do all these tell stories have in common? They all praise our God and talk about how great our God is. And the evidence and the fruit that we see through our ministries, through our kids, through our trained leaders, that exists to praise and glorify our awesome God. So that's the theme that pulls this all together. We want you now to tell your story.